Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I don't exactly recall for sure what day it was, but I want to say it was yesterday in my video where I mentioned I wanted to talk about some of the transfer portal players before I get too far behind, because once this transfer portal opens, players transfer left and right. Now, as of yesterday afternoon, when I decided I was going to do this for a video today, I believe there was 487 players who had already announced they were going to transfer. Now, I'm not going to sit here and name all 487. That would take a long time, but I am going to name quite a few of them. Some you'll know, some you won't. But there's actually only one player on this list who has decided where he's transferring to. All the rest of them are undecided. All they know is they no longer want to be where they currently are, but they have not decided where they're going. Now, if you'll pay attention as I go, you'll realize that none of the playoff teams or potential playoff teams are really on the list, because why would you transfer when the team you're playing for right now has a chance to win a national championship and you want to be involved in that? So most of the contenders, if they have any players that are going to transfer, they're not going to announce it until either the team ends up not making the playoffs, or they get eliminated, or after they win the national championship. But for the most part, usually once players announce they're transferring, they never play for whatever the school is where they're currently at. So you don't want to be a player for Washington or a player for Michigan or a player for Florida State and come out and say you're transferring, and then your team goes on to win the national championship, and you say, dang, I missed that. But let's talk about some of these players. Any thoughts on it? As always, please feel free to let me know. We have Owen Lawson, who is transferring from Arkansas. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what year these players are, how long they've been at their school, what position or positions they play, how tall they are, how much they weigh. If you want to know any of that, you can just go to any of the recruiting websites and it'll give you a list of all these players and tell you all about them. I'm just going to tell you their name and where they're transferring from, which is the important stuff. Blake Antzulatis is transferring from California. Then we have a Clayton Call, who is leaving Ball State. John Goodwin, leaving Nebraska. Zach Morris, New Mexico. Matthew McAllister is leaving Louisiana Tech, and it's funny because it's holiday season, and you've got the name Matthew McAllister, and of course, on the greatest movie for Christmas time ever, Home Alone, their last name was McAllister. Keyshawn Williams is transferring from Wake Forest. Jude Wolfe, USC. Dorian Hopkins is transferring from Tulsa. Luke Fulton, Kentucky. Cam Ward is transferring from Washington State. Now, if you know anything at all about this story, then you know there are a number of teams out there that are all breaking bad the recruiting slash transfer rule, but we know nothing's going to happen, so that's why they do it. But Cam Ward is transferring from Washington State, but from my understanding, and according to rumors earlier this week, before the transfer portal actually opened, Cam Ward took phone calls from 12 to 15 teams who were trying to lure him into announcing he was going to transfer so they could lure him to their school. And that is completely 100% against the rules. You cannot do that. But all these teams did it, and more than likely, nothing will ever come of it. TJ Springer is transferring from Western Kentucky. Keenan Johnson is leaving Georgia Tech. Jake Wiley is leaving UCLA. Christian Moore is leaving Kansas State. And then we have Zamarion Gordon from USC. Emmett Brown from Washington State. Victor Cutler is leaving Ohio State. Chance Williams is leaving Miami. Warren Burrell is leaving Tennessee, and I swear it seems like Warren Burrell has been there since Lane Kiffin was their coach. I know he hasn't, but it sure does seem that way. DJU is transferring from Oregon State, and that probably comes as a surprise to nobody because when he transferred from Clemson after the 22 season, honestly, really, truly, nobody had any idea where he was going. And I don't think at first he knew where he was going. But since he is from California, I think he kind of sort of wanted to go out west. And then when Oregon State had a quarterback position come open, he decided to go there. But, of course, their coach left to go to Michigan State. So we don't know if DJU is going to follow him there or go somewhere totally different. But I don't think he surprised anyone by announcing he was transferring. Sage Ennis is transferring from Clemson. Remington Strickland is leaving Texas A&M. Moses Alexander is transferring from Houston. Bo Collins is leaving Clemson. Stone Springman is leaving Miami. Charlie Ham is leaving Duke. Jakeen Harris is leaving the NC State Wolfpack. Riley Leonard is leaving Duke. Max Johnson is leaving Texas A&M, and by all accounts, he is heading to Chapel Hill to play for North Carolina. He's the only player on this list I have that has announced where he's transferring to. Mitchell Mays is transferring from Clemson. Frank Ladson is leaving Miami. And Keelan Rutledge is leaving Middle Tennessee State. And if you do not know who Keelan Rutledge is, he actually played high school football in Carnesville, Georgia at Franklin County High School. Now, there's only been 2 players who have really, truly made it to the NFL from Franklin County, and that was Gary Walker and Tony Jones. And those are really the only 2 players who have made it big in the NFL that come from Franklin County. And I think Keelan Rutledge has a chance to be number 3. Now, in high school, he was mainly a tight end, but at Middle Tennessee State, he's been an offensive lineman. I don't know if he's transferring somewhere just because they're not any good, or if he's transferring because he wants to go back to being a tight end or a fullback or something. But he is a big guy, and if he goes to the right team and gets used properly, he actually has a chance to make it in the NFL. And Riley Leonard shouldn't surprise anybody either, because I mentioned it numerous times during the season that Riley Leonard is a really, really good football player. And even though he could easily go to the NFL and be in the draft, he would probably get drafted. For some reason, he wants to stay in college one more year. And of course, Duke just lost their head coach to Texas A&M. We have no idea who Duke is getting. So I guess Riley Leonard didn't want to stay at Duke and spend his last year playing collegiate football in Duke when he has no idea who the coach is going to be. So he decided, hey, instead of worrying about that, I'm just going to leave. So that's what he did. Now, the transfer portal, I've mentioned it numerous times. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible idea. And it is slowly but surely killing and destroying college football. But the exciting thing about it is it pretty much makes college football a year-round sport, because as soon as the regular season ends, the transfer portal opens up for, I guess you'd call it, round number 1. And then we have all the bowl games, and of course the national championship that's played almost the middle of January. And then shortly after that, you have National Signing Day. And then you have transfer portal number 2 open up. And the next thing you know, it's summertime, and we're talking about spring and early fall practice. So it's pretty much made college football a year-round sport. But it is destroying the love of the game, because that's pretty much gone now. All these players are all about themselves. They go somewhere, and if the coach does something they don't like, they leave. If they don't get enough playing time, they leave. If they ain't playing the spot they want to play in, they leave. And it doesn't teach the players anything, because their mindset is, if you don't do what I want, I'm leaving. But it's not that way in the real world. But the main thing people hadn't thought about is now you got these guys that are making all this money for the NIL deals, and you're seeing guys that are staying in college now for 6, 7, 8 years. Why would you not? You're forking in all that money, and you can graduate and leave the school you're at and transfer somewhere new and play right away because you've graduated, and you're still making all this money off name, image, and likeness because you've got eligibility left. And next thing you know, these players are 27, 28 years old, and they're still in college. Plus, you can go back and get a second degree at whatever you want to be, or you can change your degree and get something different. Well, if you do that and you're making all this money off name, image, and likeness, you can be in college 10 years. You can go get a bachelor's degree 4 to 5 years, and then you change it, get something else. The next thing you know, you've been in college 9 or 10 years, and you're making all this money. But the downside of it is, you finally get out of college, you're 29, 30 years old, you're almost too late in life to go to the NFL. Well, now what do? You get a job in the real world, or do you take all that millions of dollars that you made in name, image, and likeness and call it a career, call it a day, and go home? So you're going to see players never making the NFL, but never hold an actual job because they make enough money off name, image, and likeness that once they finally graduate and finally leave school, they're set for life. So once they get past 29, 30 years old, they have no idea how to make it in the real world, and they're not going to worry about it. because they've got 2 or 3 degrees. They made millions of dollars off NIL deals, and they're done. And next thing you know, you're 45 years old, living in your basement, weighing 900 pounds, sitting around in your underwear eating popcorn because you don't know how to deal with the real world because you never had to. But those are the kind of things that these schools aren't thinking about. All they're thinking about is giving these players the money they want to keep them there and be done with it. But you're going to continue to see ticket prices go up. So if you don't like where they are now, beware, get ready. They're going up even higher. And you're eventually going to see these players making more money than their coach. And I just don't know how many, if any, coaches are going to be happy about the fact that they've got a college kid on their team that's making more money than they are. But for the really, 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 really great players that get all these NIL deals, it's a strong possibility that they'll be making more than their coach. Does it make it right? Doesn't mean they should, but it just means it's going to happen. As always, to get any thoughts on it, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents
I
of
never
every dollar
made it,
spent has
but I
gone
know what it
directly
takes.
to our
I'm
programs
motivated
for veterans.
by a
Visit
mix of emotion. Got my statement,
OT
and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right
What is
on
the
time.
best Christmas present?
Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this.
Dad joke about Christmas. What is
I'm
the
far away
best
from Earth and I wanna know if you exist.
broken drum?
Mission control, do you read me?
That doesn't
Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tell me to someone who will love me. Yeah,
pro
wait,
wrestling. Life can be over.
I think I'll last a bit longer. Find
How much you love it.
another reason to breathe this air.